What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Chris Akin Presents. The fat guy here, that's Chris Akin. The less fat guy over there, that would be Erik Ferentinos. Erik, how are you, sir?
I'm in a Van Halen mood, Chris.
5150.
I was doing the Van Halen gang line.
Well, dude, it's funny you do that because, like, this morning I knew we were having these guys on today, and I went and I just was listening to Van Halen all day. You know, I took a little break because I had to interview arguably one of my top 3 favorite death metal bands of all time. So I took a little break to go death metal-y, but almost all day long today, like 8 hours of Van Halen. I think I listened to pretty much everything they ever did. I didn't listen to the Sharon record and I didn't listen to Balance, but I think I listened to all the other records today. So it's been a good day of Van Halen, man.
Awesome. I got the Van Halen backdrop here. I got the stripes.
Hell yeah. I got to imagine, man, all of you guitar players, that's your guy, right?
For me, yeah. As far as like, I had the Eddie Van Halen wallpaper, which was basically comprised of the magazines.
Right.
All the rock magazines I'd cut. If he was in it, I'd cut it out and stick it on the wall. That went on, through probably junior high school. I also have a shirt on, by the way.
Look at that. Wow, that's 1984 era. I remember those
1984. Shirts. Yeah, this is that pest control company that apparently was the first sponsorship that the band got.
Okay.
When they were trying to get some money for whatever. I might be telling that story wrong, but when you're driving on the 5 going towards LA, you pass this place and you see this moniker, this mascot.
Sure.
And you're like, hey, it's the Van Halen thing, but they actually got it from
this
pest company there. And on their 1984 tour, that was the backdrop, as Chris reminded us.
I went to that show. I went to the show here in Cleveland, or in Richfield Coliseum. It was fantastic. What I remember most about that was they tore out the seats on both sides of the Coliseum because the stage was so big. The stage was so big that it didn't fit like in the arena part of it. Mm-hmm. So they literally took out seats so that they could extend the stage. It was the only time I ever saw that in my millions of concerts that I've gone to. And what a dude, I saw Van Halen a dozen times or so. Big fan. I loved them. And Eddie, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say that's the reason I went, but it kind of was.
For me. Yeah.
He was so above everybody else that you saw. Just, you'd go to other shows, you go to see the Motley Crue or Y&T or whatever it was that you'd go and see, and they just weren't the same. As a guitar player, how did that work for you? Like, every time you saw him on TV, were you trying to pick up what he was doing, or?
Yeah, although I've never been able to do that jump that he does. He was an athlete or something and would do the what do you call that when you're on the course and you jump over those hurdler?
Yeah,
hurdler. But he does it so good. I could never do that. I can only do like the jump that's like
right.
You do your legs like that, which I do. But no, I could never lift. I never could stretch my legs enough to do that. Plus, I'd be scared I might rip my pants. I got the leather pants on now. Eddie had more. He had like MC
jeans.
Hammer pants. Yeah, he had jeans. He had like Levi's jeans or something. There was different outfits he went through. Like in the Diver Down era, he went full Dutch boy.
Right.
He looked like a couple candy canes with like some Dutch boy puffy pants.
Right.
But if he ever wore something tight, you know what? I think when they first came out, he was wearing some leather pants, maybe on the first record. You could see that in the photo on the back. But then, by like 1984, he had the jeans outfit, and the Levi's jeans can hang. You could probably jump with those, and even if you did get a little rip, you could still keep the show going.
They wouldn't fall off.
as they got to their peak fame and he was really having to like execute a certain amount of jumps. I don't know if it was in his contract for the night or whatever. Hey man, you got to do 25 jumps. You have to do 5,150 jumps, Eddie. But they started doing the MC Hammer pants, which were like super puffy pants. So you definitely didn't have to worry about ripping the pants with that. he didn't have the problems I have. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was what, like 5150 era. That was
Right.
because Sammy still had his I can't drive 55 outfit. You know, the yellow one piece with the red bars across it, and Eddie was wearing like the wife beater t-shirt and the parachute pants. And yeah, they had different looks and phases, but the one thing that they didn't have, different sound. They were pretty consistent. Like the Roth era has a consistent sound. The Sammy era has a consistent sound.
To itself, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really have a record across the board with Van Halen where you go to and go, oh, geez, they were trying to be alternative or something here.
Right. When I first heard the 5150 record, I think it was Why Can't This Be Love? Might have been the first one I heard. And I thought it sounded amazing, but I didn't know it was Van Halen. I recognized Sammy Hagar's voice, but I didn't put it together that was the new Van Halen. But it sounded new and different. I accepted it as a kid, but you know, I was still pretty young at that time. I mean, I'm 51 now, so our age difference was actually pretty big, even though it's only like 4 or 5 years now. It's not a big deal, but back then you were able to go see the concerts where I wasn't. The first time I got to see Van Halen was at the Monsters of Rock.
Okay.
And this was at the LA Coliseum.
Nice.
With Metallica and Scorpions and everybody. And that was my first time seeing it. It was a super wild time. There was an epic food fight that occurred before Van Halen came on. I remember that. I remember they finally came out and they played Summer Nights and everybody had a great time. My kid memories of Van Halen were all great. You know, I think I kind of, by the time I was playing in my own bands, when they were doing Pound Cake and stuff like that, I started playing in my own bands. I remember hearing that one and liking it, but then I kind of lost touch a little bit with what they had going on. I remember On Top of the World coming out, thinking that was really, really commercial for them.
Yeah. It was. But I'm with you though, dude. I saw them I saw them on Monsters of Rock with was it Metallica, Kingdom Come, Scorps, Dokken. You know, I saw that tour as well at the Akron Rubber Bowl. And what I remember most about that was hot. Oh my God, it was fucking hot. And I saw him with Roth. I saw him with Sammy. I saw him with Sharon. All were decent. You know, I mean, they're to me the best show I ever saw with them was them and Vince Neil. 90, I guess it would have been Pound Cake era, I guess, but Eddie was just on fire. I saw him 2 nights in a row. I saw him at the Blossom Music Center here, and then the next night I drove down to Columbus to see him again. And if I'm going to be honest about it, and I hate even admitting it, but I really went both nights to see Vince Neil, and Van Halen was just a throw on for me, you know, because that was right when Vince left Motley. And I was a big fan of that record, that Exposed record, You're Invited and Your Friend Can't Come, and Sister of Pain and stuff like that. And our
buddy Robbie Crane was out on that tour, right?
He was. And I went to see that, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is fantastic!" I went the first night, and I was like, "This is really great." So then I was like, "Well, they're in Columbus tomorrow. It's only a couple-hour drive. Let's go." Just went, pissed off the wife, but went. Went, and they were even better the second night. And I mean, Eddie Van Halen was just on fire. Like, I don't know what got into him. I mean, he always kind of was. I don't think I can honestly say I never saw a bad Eddie part of a show. The last time I saw Van Halen was a real disappointment when I saw him in Wisconsin in 2013 with Steven, actually, at the Rock USA.
That was a big deal for Piercy. He was like, we had a solo Piercy show booked and he canceled it. So because Rat had an opportunity to open for Van Halen at that Rock USA gig. I remember being bummed, but I understood because he was there. Steven was there from the beginning when Van Halen was a Sunset Strip band, and he kind of befriended those guys as Robin was friends with them first.
Sure.
But they knew them on a personal level and had lent them equipment on occasion because Van Halen always tried to I'm getting the secondhand, of course. I'm telling Steven stories here, but they would want to put as many cabinets up on the stage as possible when they were first playing as like a club band getting signed. So Robin had a bunch of equipment. So they would borrow some of Robin's cabinets to throw up on the
Nice.
stage and stuff like that. And the way Steven tells the story, Robin's like, you got to come up here and see this band. They're amazing, Van Halen. And he checked it out. He was just blown away and has been a fan ever since. So when that opportunity came up, it was kind of a no-brainer for him. And they went and did it. And that was probably the last time he saw Ed, but they have some photos with them and got to the experience opening the
most
show.
of the ones that you've seen, I took.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah,
I
took a lot of those pictures from that show from backstage, man. It was.
Do you have those? Do you have any of them?
I
You could throw them
don't
up.
know if I have them handy. I don't have them super handy.
Well, that's very unprepared of you, Chris.
I know how
the Van
how dare
Halen
I-
show.
How dare I not be ready? But no, dude, it was crazy. Like we were all hanging out. Like we were hanging out with Dokken. Don hooked us up with the tickets and backstage, and it was a great time. And look, people can say whatever they want about Don. I will say, most generous guy in the world if you're his friend. Because, man, he took care of me, Neely, 3 of my friends, all access, all everything. Had my friends actually running the local bands off of the stage so that Dokken could get up there to play. I mean, had him acting as like tour management. But with Van Halen, so the Van Halen boys showed up about 5 o'clock. 2 buses, one for DLR, one for Van Halen.
Interesting.
And DLR never came up. I never saw him backstage. Never came off the bus. Never saw Alex come off the bus. Saw Wolfie. But Ed comes off the bus. He's the most famous guy there. He comes off the bus and just hanging out, walking around. Hey, how you guys doing? What's up? Shaking hands, being the coolest of the cool, man. I mean, he was being so cool. And I've never, in all my time of being around rock people, I've never seen the rock people act like fans, like I did at this. And these guys all knew Eddie. Dokken came up with Eddie Van Halen, and obviously Steven and Juan and Blotz and all those guys. They all knew Eddie, but Eddie came off that bus, and it was like... Everybody gathered around Eddie to have him tell stories, and just everybody just hung out with Eddie for like 20 minutes. It was a cool experience, man. It was a very cool moment.
So what were you eavesdropping on any of the conversations going on between these guys?
It was all just the kind of, oh man, you remember that time when we played this backyard party here? It wasn't real. Like, it was casual. It was
right.
And that was, for me, as somebody that had never met Eddie, I was just kind of struck at how laid back the guy was,
Mm-hmm.
And he was super gracious to even people that hadn't met him. Like, I remember Sean McNabb was back there, and I don't think Sean had ever met him. And he was just like, hey, I'm Ed. It's like, we know who you are.
Right.
Everybody all 40,000 of us know who you are.
I just saw Sean. I forgot what band he was playing with, but it was when we opened for Loverboy.
Okay.
A week or two ago. I meet different cool people too, and I don't know why it's so hard for me to go up and have the balls to ask for a photo with some of these guys. I kind of want to, but I don't want to be lame.
Yeah, well, you come off like a fan.
Yeah, I just feel like, God, I just don't want to like bug this guy. I mean,
Sure.
Lou Graham, I was like, God, I almost wanted to, but then when I got the chance to meet him, he's like, hi, and I'm like, hey, okay,
like, all right, good to meet you, pal.
Right. I just didn't want to. Hey, I just feel like I'm sucking their soul away when I do that sort of thing. I don't know.
It's probably because you know it from being on the other side of it too. You're on the other side of it, and you know what an annoying pain in the ass fans can be about. Hey, bro, you just finished playing. You're 30 seconds done, and they're like, "Hey, bro, come take a photo with me, bro." It's like, dude,
especially these guys that when they're really popular, I go, God, I'd be asking him to take the 50 millionth photo.
Yeah,
how could he be happy to do this or sincere about wanting to do it? It's like I feel it's like asking him for $5. Hey, man, you got $5? It's just like it's embarrassing to me in a way, but then I feel like shit. I should have kind of done that, and I get all these opportunities. Maybe I should start doing it, or maybe just put my phone like videotaping and just kind of like stand in front of them and go, don't say anything, just start videotaping it,
shooting a little video that they don't see.
Right.
Nice. Well, in theory, we're going to be talking Van Halen here in a minute. Our guests are not here yet, either one of them, but it's right at the time, so maybe I'm a little early. I'm just looking to make sure I gave them the right time or whatever. Yeah.
While I got you here, we're talking Van Halen. Obviously, people know he's had a couple different guitars he's played. He played Charvel, and then he got mad at Charvel because they were making guitars of his without his permission. A few of them. I think that's part of the story. And then he ended up going to Kramer.
Right.
And as you can see here, I have a Kramer guitar here that I've been wanting to promote. If you're interested in this guitar that is signed by Stephen Pearcy's Rat. Do you know a guy named Blas Elias?
Heard of him?
He's a very sexy dude.
Blue Man Group.
Was he in the Blue Man Group?
Yeah, he was for a minute.
He's currently in our band and in the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and it's an amazing show that happens every Christmas time. And if it comes to your town, go check it out. He's fantastic in it. And the rest of the time, he's going to be with us, playing Rat songs, and it's been such a great experience to have him in the band. But he's also in the movie Rockstar. If you've seen Rockstar with Marky Mark, Blas is in that movie as well.
And of course, he's most known for Slaughter.
Who we just played with. Slaughter opened for us as we opened for Queen's Reich.
Oh, yeah, the Queen of the Reich.
Yeah, which So, but anyways, also Mr. Johnny Monaco. We got his autograph here. We got the King Rat Stephen Pearcy autograph. You got my autograph, Erik Ferentino's, and you got Matt Thorne as well. This is the current lineup, and this here is a Kramer Beretta special that I even upgraded. I actually put real Seymour Duncans. It's got a real speed knob. Chris gives me a hard time and go, they don't care, it's going on a wall, but whatever. It's customized by me, and yeah, so it's cool. If this is something that you want, what you have to do is follow Ink Against Cancer. They're a cancer foundation that I am going to be mailing this to them very soon. I just really need to get out to Guitar Center to go get a box to send this. That's the reason why I haven't sent it to them yet. But I also wanted to hang on to it just to promote just showcase it a little bit and keep reminding people, kind of build the value and not the urgency so much, because here, that's a kind of better viewing of it there, but you can see we signed that out. It's pretty badass, right, Chris?
Yeah, it's cool, man.
I really like the headstocks on these too. Isn't that badass? It's like the black headstock with the Kramer on there, so
it'll look good on my wall when I win it.
That's right. We did this last year and it was great. I think we raised over $1,000 for them.
Nice.
And they do a lot for people in need of all ages going through treatments, and help them however they can or need. And we want to continue that tradition. So happy to be a part of this, and proud to give that to them. Ink Against Cancer. Follow them on Instagram, on Facebook, and you'll be seeing this auction advertised in the upcoming weeks.
Very cool. Well, our guests are both waiting in the green room for you to finish yapping. So let's do this. I'll play one quick spot just to transition out, and then we will bring on Tris and Steve, and we will talk some Van Halen and other stuff, Tonechaser and amps and everything else. So hang tight, everybody. We will be right back here in a minute. It is Chris Akin Presents.
It's the limited edition 6-big set from Erik Ferentino's. Get your autograph set today at ericpicks.cmspn.com. $25 includes first class shipping.
And we are right back here on Chris Akin Presents, and we are going to talk some Van Halen right now. First, I'll bring to the stage here, and I'll let you introduce first, Erik, since I know nothing about amps. But tell us a little bit about our first guest here.
Well, our guest is my friend Tris Mahaffay. who's a very cool dude. Some folks might remember him from the band Stryker, 80s rock. He's a great guitarist. He's up north from me. And he hit me up to come check out his amps, and I did. He was really cool. He let me use one. I'm using one of his amps. On the recording of our intro theme, it's the Splon amp and Triss's amp mixed together. So it's kind of double whammy. And he's just a super great guy. And he knows our other guest that's coming on, Steve.
Okay.
And he has some great Van Halen stories too. So I said, let's have you on too, buddy.
Absolutely.
So let's bring him on.
Well, here's Tris Mahaffay. Tris, how are you, man?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
What's up, man? Good to see you.
Rock and roll.
Absolutely.
Woo!
And
hey, I'm getting hit by the sunlight. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, the sun's not blocking your voice. No problem.
Okay. The sun's going down. It's like coming right in my window right now. And so as soon as it gets sun, I have better lighting. I don't have cool lighting like you guys.
Your hair sounds awesome, Tris.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, our other guest that is waiting, we'll bring him on as well. He's a second-time guest on the show. We love his book, Tonechaser, and there's always Van Halen stories left to tell, I'm assuming here, and he's got them all. He's got all the big ones. Of course, he is author Steve Rosen. Steve, how are you, man?
Hey, guys, I'm doing great. Good to see you.
Good to see you once again, man. Absolutely. Well, guys, obviously, man, let's go right to the Van Halen stuff. There's a lot of Van Halen stuff going around right now. There's Alex Van Halen getting ready to release a book and tell stories that probably some of the ex-members don't want to hear. And I guess there's new music maybe that's coming from that book. And there's obviously Sammy Hagar is out there doing his version of Van Halen. So it's a busy time once again, even though we don't have a Van Halen anymore.
Yeah, I know, but it's awesome. I mean, I have to hand it to Satch. He's pulling it off. I mean, this stuff is not easy. It's really difficult to play, Ed, at any level. Right. Even the most simple as Ed is difficult. So
I never tried. I never really tried beyond like Ain't Talking About Love. I was like,
yeah,
if you can't do it perfect, don't bother.
Well, that's the thing. And you're going to get criticized if you mess anything up. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's the issue though, for me has always been, if you start to go down that rabbit hole and try to play like Ed, then all of a sudden that's what you sound like all the time. So,
right,
Erik, that's one thing I've always enjoyed about your playing is just it's so raw and so honest. And I'm a big Piercy fan, which of course, having known you now, I know why the band just kicks ass. You guys send it every night, and I'm always saying that Piercy's the hardest working man in show business next to you. I mean, that's really it.
Well, you got that Cash App payment for saying that, right?
I did. Yes. Yes.
Right.
I got the envelope. But yeah, Eddie everywhere.
Right on.
Yeah. And if I might, Tris, you bring up an interesting point about Joe, because very early on when Joe, when there was a word out, the Best of All Worlds tour, and Joe Satriani is going to be playing all these Van Halen classics, there were some people saying, "Oh, Joe Satriani, he can't play that stuff," and I was just incredulous. Anybody who would say that it's such a stupid thing to say. I didn't even want to put my name out there to get involved in the conversation. But I think their first appearance was on Howard Stern's show. Right. It was an early morning show, and I think they'd rehearsed like for half an hour. And Joe did something that wasn't exact, and the people just jumped on him, Yeah. And, I guess in a way it shows the respect that people had for Edward. Like you were saying, right. Just like, if you don't nail this thing perfectly, you shouldn't be allowed to play it, But what Joe has done, he's such a brilliant guitar player, obviously, is that he knows all the main licks, right? And then he adds Joe Satriani, which I think at the end of the day is really what you want to hear.
Yeah.
But,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, let me ask you this, Steve, and I get this all the time. I am a definite Van Hagar fan, so I'm gonna put that out front before I ask the question. There are so many people that hate Van Hagar on such a level, which makes no sense to me. You know, I get it if you like the Roth era better. That's fine. You know, that's fine. I don't understand the hate, though, of the guy that Eddie chose to replace him and wrote music with, that he's so hated. Why do you think that is? And do you think that's a reason that there was so much instant backlash when he announced the Best of Both Worlds tour?
I do think that, and I think it's all connected, Chris. I think that anybody who would replace Dave was going to get the same treatment. You know, again, they hold Dave and Mike and Al and Edward in such awe and reverence. You know, it wouldn't matter who came in. I mean, it could have been Freddie Mercury or, you know, Roger Daltrey. I don't think it would have mattered. I think at some point they were all going to get bashed and beaten up. I think at a point in time, it really has nothing to do with musicality, because it's really apples and oranges. I mean, you can't compare the two. I mean, yes, Edward is the guitar player in both bands, and Mike and Al, but beyond that, it's just, you know, the singers approached the music differently. You know, lyrically they were different. You know, the timbre of their voices was different. So I think it's just that I think people just like to protect what they think is theirs, and if that's the Dave era, it's the Dave era, and if it's the Sammy era, if they were Sammy fans, you know, from the solo career, and then oh my God, Sammy Hagar is the singer in Van Halen. Oh, I'm going to love him. You know, he's going to be great. So I think that's part of it, you know. And you know, the debate will go on forever. Sure. And I know that people will really hate me for this. I thought Gary Cherone was a really, really good singer. Mm-hmm. But by then, right, no Van Halen fan was going to accept a third vocalist in Van Halen. So, it was kind of all over before it was done. But I thought that was a good record. I mean, I know it didn't do well, and Edward had more control. At the end of the day, fans didn't dig it. But I think it was time and place, and had those songs come out earlier in the career and had two singers not sort of come and gone by then. I don't know.
I think in one way they have an album come out just to say we're serious about this guy being the singer. He is the singer in Van Halen. As you can see, here is a Van Halen record with this singer on it. And there's a lot of bands that kind of do that. Linkin Park is doing that currently.
Yeah.
But he, you know, I don't know if they expected a bunch of hits off it or anything, but they did need somebody that was going to be able to do both versions of the band, the Roth era, and pull the Sammy Hagar off. That becomes a very even smaller pool of guys that could do that, and I do think they chose the right guy for it. I agree with you.
He was good live. I saw him live, and he was very good at. He was better than Sammy was at doing the Dave stuff. That's for sure. I think one thing that hurt Gary was Gary just comes off soft. You know, and he did with Extreme too. I mean, great singer, love both bands that he was in, but I mean, his presentation, his mannerisms were soft, and that really hurt. You know, the Van Halen crowd in that era especially was very masculine, and you know, and it just didn't play well for those fans, at least in my mind. Yeah,
no, I get it. I agree with that, definitely.
I think I can add something to this too.
Sure.
It's like the issue. Well, I think Eddie had a lot more control on that record, you know, so he was writing exactly what he wanted to do. I think with Sammy, what's interesting to me is that Sammy was already a force, you know, to be reckoned with before he got in Van Halen. So my thing was like, why? You know, what's the point? But when he came in there, he just took that band to another level melodically. Mm-hmm. And Eddie was writing these songs that required a level of musicianship and songwriting that Sammy can do. You know, I mean, right now that song still kills me, and you know, it's just powerful. Right. You know, and I think that's a huge thing. I think the argument with people having to like, you know, make a comparison between all of the singers. Is the thing they're forgetting is it's all Eddie and guitar. He wrote all the songs. Right. You can't not like it, you know. Sure. It's not like they told him what to do. He wrote the stuff.
Right.
You know? Right.
Trish, let me ask you this as a guy that's, you know, we'll talk about your band stuff in a minute, but I want to get right into your amp stuff.
Sure.
because I think it fits into this conversation. You know, you for people that don't know, you're the CEO of Mahaffay Amps,
Mm-hmm.
which obviously you try to create a specific tone that's going to play well to guitar players and,
Yes.
you know, and for audience to hear. When you get a guy like an Eddie Van Halen, do you try to tweak and model what you're doing around a sound that is so universally accepted?
Wow, that's a heavy question because, you know, when you build an amp, well, let's go back. So when I first heard Van Halen in '78, and a friend of mine brought the album over and put it on, you know, I immediately heard a sound that we were all chasing. Like all of us kids, when we were 16 years old, were chasing that sound, right? So it was not surprising to me that all of a sudden somebody cracked the code, which Eddie obviously did. So, but as a guitar player, and Erik, you know this, I mean, you know, if you like an amp, the second you plug in,
Right.
it's not something you have to screw around with for a few minutes. If you plug in and you roll up the volume and you feel the nuance of the string and how it reacts to the guitar amp, you know right then.
Right.
You know, it's an immediate. It's either or I don't think I can get here. At least that's been my experience.
And a lot of times it can be when it's supplied equipment.
Yeah, exactly. You poor guy. You know, but for an amp maker's perspective, I mean, I did something different. I went after what I thought it should be, and then I ended up building. 20 years ago, I ended up building the smaller version of the amp, which was called. It came out under Little on a Lay. It was a tiny little amp, which I still build, by the way. But it was more of a highly modified pig nose with tubes, you know, for the traveling guitar player. And those things took off. I had an ad in Vintage Guitar Magazine, and then everybody that you can imagine is calling me. And it fit the niche of having a really good sounding amp, traveling, okay, where your backstage amp would sound as good as your rig out front, just quieter. And the whole premise was, if you're in the recording studio and you have your amp in the performance room mic'd up with a cabin, you're listening to your amp through a near field. Well, there's your sound. You got your sound coming through a near field. So why didn't anybody ever build a small little amp that would give you that sound? That was the design characteristics that I was looking for. And that took off because what did people do? The first thing anybody does, they take a little amp, they plug it into a 412 cabinet. And in my case, it's 33 watts. And you have what you hear in the studio out of the cabinet. So
Nice.
I try to do my design, which is they're all the same. And it's one that I came up with in the early 90s. It took me 3 years to come up with it. And I've just been lucky enough that I think I've nailed it, you know. So I come in full circle on your question. I don't think it's so much of me trying to figure out what other guys want. It's that I figured out what I wanted, and then I seem to be in the crowd.
Right.
In the light crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a different thing, you know, being a guitar player. And, you know, I'll wrap this up with this. When I designed the circuit, I would connect up the parts, if you will. It was on a table, and I would swap the parts out until I got the circuit that sounded the way I wanted to do. Then I walked away from it for like several months, and I came back in, plugged it in. That's it. It's done. I got it. So in other
Give
words,
your ears a break.
Yeah, give your ears a break, walk away from it. And from that point on, that's what these things have been. And in this new one, the one you're showing, the only difference with this and anything I've made in the past for anybody who is looking to upgrade isn't much. It's more power. It's the same circuit. And then I did add something for a little middle tone control in there that works for smaller cabinets to bigger cabinets. But other than that, it's super simple, which is the other design idea. Keep it simple. You don't need tons of parts in there. It's got a high gain preamp pull knob, old school style, like what we do in the 80s. You pull the knob to get more gain or not, push it back in.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a tone knob. It's got a master volume. It's got a line level effects loop, so you can put your favorite delays through there.
Right.
And a master. And that's it. And, you know, one final point is that for me, I don't know about you, Erik, but for me playing through my amp, if the amp is sounding bad or the night is sounding bad or whatever, it's me. It's not the amp.
Right.
It's me sounding bad.
with your amps, I'll agree with that.
Right. So they tell the truth, you know. So anyways, that's the long-winded answer to your short question.
And I'll just add that he's Warren DeMartini. You've made a little amp for him as well. Is that the pig nose kind of thing you were talking about?
Yeah.
How do you describe the smaller amp you have? I think you have it around there somewhere, don't you?
Yeah. I don't even. Of course, I don't have one here.
That's
It's on the website though. It's the little Lonelay. And, you know, Warren, as well as a lot of other players, they just adopted them. They started through word of mouth. I think his was given to him by Performance Guitar in Hollywood. I just remembered who that was.
Okay.
It was a gift for Warren. And then he was on tour with Robbie. And then Robbie knew me. And the thing it fell off a counter and it broke the knob. So Warren called me and I fixed it and sent it back to him on tour. But yeah, I mean, the list is long. I mean, I've been very lucky. It's word of mouth. I used to advertise. I don't anymore. However, and I know, Erik, I'm trying to get you there, but Steven and I are doing the NAMM show. So you got to come to the booth.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely.
Very cool.
Anyway,
Can I add my little Tris story in here, guys?
Please.
Yes.
Sure. I'll stop talking because you know me.
So just shut up for a second, Tris. I'll give you a compliment. So my buddy who gets like every new amp that comes out. I mean, he's got a ton of different amps and he plays in cover bands. Very good guitar player. And I was always asking him, you know, Danny, what amp can I get that's going to make me sound like a Warren DeMartini or Erik? Or, you know, I got, you know, I'm still looking, but he says, man, I just got one of these Mahaffay amps, you know, you got to check it out. And what I loved about it was this is one of Tris's, you know, one of the little guys. It was obviously lightweight.
Mm-hmm.
And the word that he uses is simplicity. So people like you, Tris and Erik, you're out there, you're touring, you're tweaking, you're plugging in pedals. You get it. That's your vocabulary. But if you're someone like me who basically plays in my bedroom, once in a while I'll go out and my brother plays in a couple of cover bands. I want to go play a Tom Petty tune. I want to bring an amp that I don't have to worry about. Oh my God, is it, you know, do I have to push it to pull it? Is it faint? You know, I mean, I can barely work my freaking computer. Now I got to worry about the amp, you know. And so that's what I loved about it. So my buddy told me about it. I went out and bought one, and it was fantastic. And Tris and I were talking. Tris has the book, and we were talking. And I think I mentioned to him once that Edward was over, and I had a little pig nose. And, you know, we all know what a pig nose sounded like. I mean, for its time, it did what it did. Nobody sounded good through a pig nose. Edward sounded pretty good. I sounded like pig shit. But Tris may have brought up, or I was thinking, you know, God, what if I had one of Tris's amps there, you know, just a little amp that Edward had plugged into, you know, I bet he really would have dug it, you know.
Yeah,
definitely.
So Tris's thing is, yeah, man, it's just simplicity. It's the same sound every night. You put it on 6 and, you know, gain there, and it's going to be the same. And for somebody like me, that's like a godsend. You know, for guys like you who can tweak and do things, all of that is available. But for people like me who couldn't get a great sound out of a vintage anything, you know, it's amazing, you know. And Chris, can I tell them what we're working on here?
Yeah, secret project, not so secret.
So I wanted to simplify even more. So for me to even have like a separate head and a cabinet, too much, because I'll plug it into the wrong input, the wrong output. So I said, what about a combo? And Tris said, well, I make one with a 12-inch, but Tris has dug a 210 before. That's what he hears. And he had never done one. So he said, I want one. So Tris is building me a 210 combo. And I'm going to get out there and sound like Tris and Erik. And you watch out, guys. You look behind you now.
Nice.
So, yeah, man, it's exciting. What he does is amazing. He does everything himself. And in this world, in this day and age, man, to be able to do that and have this company and have all that control, I think it's really special, you know. So
bravo.
Pretty amazing.
Thank you, Stephen.
You know, Tris, please tell the story you told me when you were over there. It was hilarious about Edward, where you had met him, for the first time, and you asked him for an autograph. That story?
Yeah.
Tell our fans this story.
Sure. So this goes back, and I think it's 82. I'm pretty sure it's 82. So it was my first NAMM show, I think. And I'd never been. I didn't know anything about it, you know, other than that I'd heard about it. But a good friend of mine invited us and got us passes, which back then were very difficult to get. I mean, it wasn't something good luck.
Was this in the first few years of them even doing NAMM? What was the first year they did it?
Well, NAMM goes back into the 70s. Out of
it does?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But by the time they got to Anaheim, it was blowing up. You know, I mean, you had every major company there with huge booths and things like that. But what happened was my whole band went and a bunch of buddies, and we're simply walking down one of the NAMM aisles of gawkers, like Stephen likes to say. Gawkers. Taking his words. And I look ahead of me and somebody says, "That's Ed." And I'm like, "Ed Van Halen?" They go, "Yeah." And he was right in front of us. Schlitz malt liquor. I think he was wearing pajamas. I could be wrong about this, but I think he was wearing pajamas. And he walks into one of those guitar booths that was selling the little tiny guitars that look like full size.
Okay.
It could have been Chiquita. I don't know who it was. I mean, this was early on, but there's one on a stand and he kneels down. And so my buddy, I think it was Paul Wilson, nudges me and go talk to him. I'm like, I never do that. Still to this day, I don't, you know? So, I mean, I'm like, yeah, okay. So I go and I kneel down next to him and he looks me straight in the eye and he goes, "Got a pick?" I'm like, "You're Ed Van Halen. You don't have a pick." So I'm like, for once I had a pick. I actually had a striker. We have striker picks that my cousin made for me. And I gave him my pick. And then he sat there and he played, kind of like not really seriously playing, but kind of noodling around. And I kind of felt maybe I better not, you know, hang out with him there, just watching him. So I got up and I left the booth. And then, of course, other people were seeing him. And there was a crowd behind just Ed and I at the booth.
Right.
People just circle around the whole thing. So anyways, I got out of there and was like, oh, my God, it's insane. So we leave that booth and then we go walking up the aisle a little bit further. And in the NAMM show, the thing you don't do is ever stop at a crossroads, you know, where two, you know, aisles blend.
You'll get slammed, yeah.
Oh, my God. So we're standing there. We're kind of like reminiscing or just like, oh, my God, I couldn't believe what happened. And then wham, right from behind, Ed runs right into me and my bass player, like full speed. He probably was not even paying attention where he was going. He hit us.
The Schlitz was kicking in. The Schlitz.
Yeah. So from there, he's beelining it. And where he was going was the Kramer guitar booth.
Right.
So he was working with Kramer at that time. Early on, I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Saw earlier, Ink for Cancer, we're auctioning this Kramer guitar, Kramer Beretta.
Okay. Is it a striker?
Tris may have been the inspiration for the Kramer Striker guitar.
Well, okay, so that's a whole nother story in itself. But
yeah, we'll get to that one. We'll get to that.
Yeah, there's some strange similarities on that. So, anyways.
Hello.
Sorry, guys.
That's okay. So, once again.
Everybody I know is here.
So, once again, you know, we get up to the Kramer booth, and there's Ed standing in there with all the Kramer people. And then I don't know who told me. He said, "Hey, why don't you go have him at least sign your business cards?" I'm like, okay. So I walk in there with the business card and I hand it to him. And he signed it. He definitely signed it. And he
Now,
gave
what
it
did he
back.
sign on there, Tris?
So he put, Tris, you fucking homo, after Van Halen. And he was laughing his ass off. I'm just a kid, probably, I was a kid. So he tries to take it from me, right? He tries to rip it out of my hand. I'm like, oh no, I'm keeping this. And he's like, I'll do another one. I only had one card. So
Right.
I'm like, I'm taking this and I'm keeping this. And I had that forever. I still have it. I can't believe I found it, and it's in my collection, my Ed collection. But we just hung out and watched the goings on at Kramer. That was early on with Kramer. And a little be miffed to what happened about a year later, which is sure what you're alluding to. But
Right. The striker concept.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I have to say though, that was what we like to refer to as the year or years of the dreaded ER ending. So you had Steeler, Striker, Exciter,
yeah,
all these bands with the ER ending, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you think he might have? It's possible that the pick you gave him that day, when he was dealing with the Kramer folks, he might. We don't know for sure or not. He's not here around anymore to tell us. But they said, Eddie, what do you want to call this model guitar? And he might have gone, what about Striker? I mean, I remember him doing an ad for a Striker Kramer model, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. He's peering in the window of a house, and then there's a kid and his girlfriend, and he's playing a Striker. That was the ad, with Eddie peering in the window from the outside, like a bedroom, like a peeping Tom or something,
Right.
He was a guitar player forever. But that's more of Steve Rosen's time. Whether or not he ever,
Will that be part of the new edition of Tonechaser, Steven?
Chris and I have talked about it. So let me get through edition 3 here, and we'll think about edition 4.
Who's to say? It's a strange coincidence, and
Right.
I kept that. I remember who was most angry about that whole situation was my mother.
Of course.
Because she saw it, and she saw it happen, and she actually had connections in the music industry, and she almost got on the phone. I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't call around. It's unnecessary.
Oh my goodness! Good thing they didn't have the internet back then.
Yeah,
I know.
kidding. Would have been a Twitter war or something.
She would have been blowing up their pages and
Right.
calling them all out on Facebook.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Right.
It's,
Well, Steve, since you mentioned third edition, let's talk about that real quick, man. You've got to be thrilled that the first two editions have come and gone, man, and you've sold thousands of books at this point. Talk about the third edition. And I don't think people realize, books are kind of a mystery to most people. I write them myself, so I'm well aware of how to sell books. People do not realize how hard it is to sell an edition out of a run, man. That's really difficult, and to be on your third edition, and that says a lot about your book, man.
Well, thank you, man. It has been a challenge, which I knew it would be. To work off your point there, Chris. For the hell of it, I Googled to see kind of what's the average number of books that a author of a self-published book will sell, And I had in my head, I don't know, 1,000 books, it's from 0 to 500 books.
Sure.
oh wow.
So it's hard. Social media has made it possible. Well, let's put it this way. In some respects, it's much more difficult. In some respects, it's much easier. So I can put up a post on a big Van Halen site that has 250,000 followers, and talk about the book and put the cover photograph up there, and you'll get a response, But what I've never known is how many people actually bought the book because they saw this post of mine on a big Van Halen site.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Tristan and I might have been talking about that. And that's called marketing, which totally befuddled me. I thought, well, marketing, yeah, anybody, I know how to market. That's advertising. And my brother's worked for Compaq and big time companies. He goes, no, marketing has nothing to do with advertising. Marketing is when I put that post up there, how many people bought the book because they saw that?
Right.
That's marketing, right? That's valuable information. I'd love to have that information for when I go and do post number 4 or when I do an audio book. I have no idea how many people saw that. But in answer to your question, yeah, if this was back in the day, like Tris did, he put an ad in one of the guitar mags. I would have put an ad in Guitar Player magazine and Guitar World, and that would have been it. But it has been challenging, how to maneuver through Facebook and Instagram and getting a YouTube channel together. And my stupidity about all of that stuff follows on the heels of not knowing how to turn an amplifier on. So thank God I have buddies who know how to do that. Right. They know how to put a post on Instagram and put the little graphics up there. But yeah, I am really, really happy with how it's gone, selling out those first 2 editions. In fact, the first 2 editions sold out in less than 2 years.
That's great.
It's pretty amazing. And this 3rd edition has been out since March, I think, and it's doing really well. And yeah, man, I really couldn't ask for more. The response has been so positive. People understand the intent behind the book. It's a very honest book, and it's a revealing book about myself as well. And I put myself out there on the line, and that's the kind of book that I had to write. If I was not going to write that kind of a book, then I was just going to, well, hell, let me just recycle all my interviews and all the interviews that no one's ever heard, and I'll just put a book out about that stuff, which would have been interesting, but it would have been an entirely different book. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but the rewards have been pretty amazing.
Sure. Well, the other thing that's hard, Steve, and I know this with my books, and like you, I did the same exact thing, is when I put out my first 2 books, I put them out like kind of in 2 years. And then I went back and I looked, and I self-published them, so I had a record of how many I'd sold. And thank God I have this radio show and my other show, which has a big audience. And I had sold 2,200 copies of each of the first 2, which I was thrilled with. And then I looked just like you and saw the same. Most people sell between 100 and 400 books, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a king at this.
Exactly.
But
I'm a Pulitzer Prize winner.
Yeah, exactly. But the one thing that I learned, and I'm curious if you've learned this as well, is once you are known to have a book out there, everybody wants it free. And I don't necessarily mean the book, but they want all the stories. Like, you go, and I know you've done a bunch of podcasts, and shows with various people, and they're asking you questions very specific to stories that you're telling in the book that you don't want to tell. You want people to buy the book, but we're in such a weird world now where everybody wants it for free. It's like, oh, you got a good book? Well, tell me the best story about it. And it's like, no.
Right. Yeah, no, that happens a lot. So don't you do it, Chris?
No.
2 interviews, I've never asked you one question about what's in your book, have I?
Oh, man, I know. Well, and usually my comment, as much as I love talking about the book, is, hey, I don't want to give the ending away, or hey, I don't want to give that chapter away. But no, you're right. You're right. It's a fast food mentality, and I want it now, and I want it cheaply or free, and when they're asking the questions, I don't think they think that, well, yeah, if he tells us every story in the book, our fans won't have to buy the book, Right. It's like, well, that's great for you and your podcast. That's not so great for me, But it is a strange situation. There's no getting around it. You do the podcast and you answer the questions as in the most enlightened and fanciful way you can. But sometimes it's like, hey man, I don't want to give that away,
Right.
So
And the worst part, at least in my head, though, and this goes for music too. You all three can talk about this. If you give it away, then it has no value later. If you read it and you can relate to it, or if you hear it as a song and you can relate to it, then it has value to you. Might be negative value. Somebody might hate what you wrote about Eddie, or somebody might hate a Stryker song or a Piercy song or whatever. But at least they have a connection to it now. And that is why bigger picture, it's why we don't have any big rock stars anymore, because there's no connection to anything anymore. There's no connection to movies. There's no connection to anything where people give it value. And it's sad what we've become.
It's really a tough one. I can say, though, with this book, that there is so much. I mean, I listened to the audiobook, which is how many hours, Stephen? 60?
30 hours and 30 minutes.
Okay. 30 hours. I keep upping it to
He re-listened to it twice.
It's 400 hours, okay, or whatever. But like I said, there is so much there that I think Stephen could podcast for the end of his life and never cover it all. I mean, that's how much there is in there. So, I mean, this is a plug for the book, because it really, if you're an Edward Van Halen fan, you really understand the pressures he was under. And all the stuff that's come out in the press, and you're always like trying to jump on somebody's opinion or somebody's ideas of what the band was and everything. This is the book that really tells you what's going on, right. And that to me was huge. I mean, I think I can't believe time goes by so quickly, that how many years it was that this all happened. I have to keep reminding myself of my age. But, having the chance to find out about who this guy was, thanks to this book, is amazing. It's not sugar-coated. And, some people may like some things, maybe not. But you know what? We're all human. And guess what? Ed was human. He really was. He was gifted. He was human. And if there's anything that I get out of this, is it actually gets you closer to this guy, in an interesting way. Kind of makes you miss him even more, in my opinion.
That's great, man. I love that. And that's,
I mean,
if I think about it, I mean, that's why I wrote it. I wanted you to feel like you knew him a little better than you did before you read the book. And the only way to do that is by writing this book that was honest, and you had to show those the cracks.
Right.
Have you received any negative feedback? Because all I've seen is positive. As far as Facebook specifically, we had you as a guest a year ago. About 6 months ago, I started seeing Tonechaser. Hey, you guys, have you seen this? Have you read this? It's amazing. You have to get this. Like these personal testimonies of folks that read it were like, you have to get this. If you are a Van Halen fan, you have to get this. And I was seeing that. I go, wow, this is really taken off for Steve. This is great. But had you had any negative? Have you heard any negative since the release?
Yeah. I've read, when they say don't read your press, read your press. Yeah, because I tend to go to the lowest common denominator. Oh my God, that guy didn't like it. My book sucks. I wish I wasn't like that, but I am. But these comments were so acidic. I mean, they were so. This guy wanted to find out where I live, knock down my door, and set my house on fire.
Wow.
Okay. It's like. Yeah. Rosen, who is this fucking guy? Did he even know Ed? What gives him the right to write this? It's like, okay. Right. Do you guys know Reddit? Do you know that site?
Oh,
Reddit?
Yeah.
Of course. I'm on
all of these negative comments were on Reddit.
Okay.
And the way that these guys will shred each other. Oh my God. One comment, that was one comment. The other one was why did you say some of those things about him? It wasn't so negative. I got it. You know, I understood what Edward meant to this person. And by me saying those things, you know, you sort of reshape his
sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
They expected you to sugarcoat it more.
Yeah, man. And I could not write that book. If I was going to write that book, I wasn't going to write the book, you know. So no, the response has been about 98%, 99% positive.
Right.
You know, that being said, I have never heard, and this is, you know, I don't like to talk about this because I'm uncomfortable, but I've never heard from the Van Halen camp.
Right.
You know, so
that's probably a good thing.
Well, I honestly, I think it probably is.
Yeah.
I know that Wolf knows about the book, and I know that because Charlie Benante, who was out with Pantera,
yeah,
got the book, loved the book. Pantera opened for Wolf's band, opened for Metallica for, I don't know, a couple shows. And I'd gotten some books to Charlie to give to the Metallica guys, which he did. 4 signed books, and you guys haven't done anything, but that's okay, you know. And he said to me, hey, man, yeah, you know, Wolf saw that I was giving the books, and he goes, hey, where can I get a book? So I thought that was amazing. The fact that he didn't say, oh, the fucking book. You know what I mean? No. It's like,
right.
So, you know, I don't know, you know, and we all know, I think we touched about it earlier about all the Van Halen news. Alex has his book coming out on the 6th. Mm-hmm. He's doing a couple book signings back east. He's doing one out here in Culver City at the Robert Frost Auditorium, which by unbelievable coincidence, I went to Culver City High School. Wow. And I was in the Robert Frost Auditorium about 1,000 times. I saw one of my first bands there, the Seeds. You know, they had like you know, like the city council brought in bands. And anyway, Alex is going to be there with the author, you know, kind of talking about the book. I mean, I'd love to go, but I'm afraid that, you know, I would show up and, you know, I just don't think anything positive would come from it. So that's a regret. You know, even to hear from them saying, hey, man, we hate your book. We hate you. You know, if you read the book, Al, I wrote something that Al didn't want printed. To my mind, it's like it was such a minor thing that happened like 40 years ago. Can we not let go of it just a little bit? But life doesn't work that way. Anyway,
I think that's all circumstantial. I mean, if I was held accountable for stuff I said, I mean, I've got a fat
but
mouth,
you didn't print it. That's the difference.
I guess. But I think honestly, in the moment and all that sort of stuff. I mean, do people? Like Steven's saying, it's 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, this stuff is just and to the younger generations, they certainly don't care. You know,
right? I don't think Wolf would care. Like I've noticed in interviews I've seen with him lately, he's the first one to say that his dad had a dark side along with the light side. That there's things that Eddie influenced people to do that weren't good things. Well, you know, whether it's smoking or drug use or anything like that, that there is a dark and light to this guy.
So guess what? Edward Van Halen was a human.
Sure.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's what I get from this all the time, because I could see how family members could definitely see something, you know, that maybe they don't agree with. But I think they're probably sensitive to that, and I don't blame them at all. But I think for us on the outside that, you know, worshipped him, I'm going to use that word.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, Ed changed the impact that he did. And I was thinking about this today because the records that came out at that time that Van Halen 1 came out, you know, we had like the Sex Pistols were out earlier. You know, Blondie, you know, the whole new wave punk scene was
Skinny Tie bands
on fire, you know, to say song title. But I mean, that was dominating the clubs, the radios, everybody. And then even the disco was kind of dying out. But then Van Halen comes out. And for me, it was shortly thereafter, after my favorite band, which is Leonard Skinner, the plane goes down.
Right.
So all of a sudden you have this burst of energy coming out, and man, was it needed. That's exactly what guitar players needed.
Mm-hmm.
A serious Ted Nugent, hey, love him. And he's still one of the best guitar players I've ever heard. But I mean, there was nothing like when Ed came out and reshaped the entire industry. Okay. Mm-hmm. And again, with Steven's book, it gives you a view of what that must have been like for him. Right. It's incredible. Right. So, you have to take the good and the bad. But the fact is that what a timepiece that book to me is. It's an amazing view that we would not ever have.
Agree.
The book had ever been written.
Totally agree.
Anyways, that's my 7 cents again.
Well, Steve, I'll just put this out to you, and you can email me after if you want. But if you need help getting a book to Wolfie, I'm pretty sure I have the right connect to get you there. So, so I could probably help you on that.
Wow.
But we could talk about that some other place. I just want to put it in your mind so I don't forget. And let's do this, guys. Let's wrap it up. Steve, I'll let you go first, man. Tell everybody where they should go to buy the book and to keep up with you and maybe buy the audiobook, or if they don't want to do the read part, where should they go to?
Cool. So you can find the book on my website, which is very simple, tonechaserbook.com, all one word. You can also go and find it on Amazon, Reverb, eBay, and Etsy. So if you need a little purse, a hand custom purse,
Etsy,
you can go to Etsy. I think I sold 4 books over there. Actually, I think I sold about 20 books on Etsy, which shocked me. But so you can find them there. You can actually also find the book. If you're around, you can actually find it at Book Soup, which is one of the last unbelievably great independent bookstores in West Hollywood, right across the street from where Tower used to be, just a block away from the Whiskey and all those big clubs up there. And just this past July 1st, I came out with an audiobook version, which is very special because I do the main narration. That's not why it's special, though I do a superb job, I must say. No, seriously, it's pretty good. But what's so great about it is that rather than me reading the entire book, all those interviews with Edward and me reading both parts, I have embedded the audiobook with the actual archival interviews I did with Edward dating back to 78. So you're hearing all these unheard interviews. There's parts where Ed's noodling. He's showing me how to do one of his hammer-ons, and he's actually describing it. It's pretty amazing. I jam with him a couple times. That's on there. There's about 30 seconds of Edward cranking. He had just bought 2 Les Pauls, and he's brought them over to my pad, and he's plugged into my Marshall. Everything's on 10. And he's cranking the Les Paul through the Marshall for about 30 seconds. To me, it's worth the price of admission alone.
Right.
So if you already have a copy of the hardback, there's a discount I give you guys. And if you want to buy the hardback and the audiobook, that's sort of a combined price. I've really tried to price everything really reasonably. So I think the audiobook is $39.99. And if you have the hardback already, it's $29.99. And you can find that at mysoundwise.com. One word, mysoundwise.com. And it's really pretty amazing. If you have the book, this takes you into a level deeper. So instead of me taking 5 pages to describe the mood that Edward was in that day and what did it sound, how was he speaking and how much did he smoke, you're hearing him smoking and playing, and it's really, really pretty special. So
very cool.
Yeah, that's what's going on with me, guys.
Very cool. How about you, Tris? Where's the best place to keep up with you and buy an amp and all that other stuff?
Yeah, so mahaffayamps.com is where you go to see everything. Actually, that amp is not on the website yet. It will be. And as we mentioned earlier, we will be at the NAMM 2025, somewhere in Hall D, the noisiest room. So you can definitely see us there. Come by the booth. I'll be there with Steven. And then my band Stryker is playing with Pat Travers on the 23rd, January 23rd, which is also NAMM week.
I really want to go to that.
Then And then they have the NAMM Jam happening that week at the Grand Theater, and we're scheduled to play that as well. So the band will be playing. And of course, I play through my own amps, I always have. I'm probably one of the only people that never looks for an amplifier.
Right.
I
got my own stuff.
I got my own stuff. I don't need anything else. Anyways, that's where you find that. I wanted to add something to something that Steven said really quick about Ed. Go. Okay, so he's talking about Ed showing him how to play a guitar lick. And one of the things guitar players will really, for the book, they will really get out of this is you hear Ed try to explain his guitar licks to Steven. And one of the things that I found the most funniest is he said, Steven, you're playing it backwards. I was like, right. Because if you know and you go down the Ed rabbit hole, what you think he's doing the opposite. So think in reverse and you'll find your way to an Ed lick. Anyways, I just want to throw that out there.
Very cool. Hell yeah. Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. This is as always, it's always fun to do this. It's always fun to keep up with you guys.
Thank you.
You guys are obviously welcome back whenever you want to come back on.
Thank you.
And that is going to do it for us this week. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening and blah, 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 and check it out on the website. And for those of you that follow myself and Erik, don't forget next week is Fright Bite number what, Erik? 8?
I believe so. And we just announced what the next Fright Bite movie is going to be. It's Sharktopus. Another classic. That's right. So the subscribers on my Facebook, it's only $1 to join that.
Yeah.
Or if you're a Cap local, this is an exclusive event we do on the last Tuesday of the month.
Yep.
And it's a lot of fun. So join up and get down with the bite.
That's it. And that is going to do it. We are going to bite our way out of here. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Tris. And everybody have a great night.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Erik with his mohawks fighting wild. Beach mentioned West living like a child. Chris ate those crickets, babies in hell. Dreams of bacon and cheese now